Добър ден на всички! Здравейте, аз съм Симеон Василев от фондация GLAS и Sofia Pride и изключително много се радвам да ви посрещна днес на исторически първият Sofia Pride Business Forum. And I should switch in English, actually. I'm Simeon Vasilev from GLAS Foundation and Sofia Pride, and it's my great honor to welcome you all today for the historical first Sofia Pride Business Forum. Why Sofia Pride as an event for human rights and LGBTI inclusion is taking on a business forum, you'd probably be wondering. The reason is simple. We are all human beings, and we all want to be accepted and included, and we spend half of our times at work, so that's why it's extremely important to be welcomed and accepted there. And the support for Sofia Pride when it comes to businesses has been growing tremendously through the recent years, and I'm extremely happy that in my role in Sofia Pride, we have managed not only to double the number of corporate support, but really to triple and 4 times get businesses support Sofia Pride. Just a couple of years ago, there was only one company which was on board of Sofia Pride with a donation of 2,000 leva. And this year, for the 16th edition of Sofia Pride, we have over 20 different companies. This is really a remarkable number which speaks volumes when it comes to the corporate engagement on the topic of LGBTI inclusion at the workplace. And we have prepared for you today, welcome, we have prepared for you today 2 panels, the new family circle, where I'm going to be leading the panel, and we're going to talk with some of the companies which have been supporting us throughout the years about their journey, about the diversity and inclusion policies they have in place. And later on, we're going to have a break, and later on, we're going to have a second panel where we will be speaking with companies who are on the road of in diversity and inclusion when it comes to LGBTI people. So really 2 very different perspectives you're going to hear today at this event. Practical information, of course, always. Where are the toilets? They're around there and at the back. Please switch off the sound on your mobiles as we are broadcasting live on Facebook of Sofia Pride, GLAS Foundation, and YouTube. Of course, if you have any questions, just feel free to ask, and we'll be happy to answer. And finally, Sofia Pride is on June 17th, and we'll be very, very happy to see you all there at the 16th edition of Sofia Pride. So thank you very much. And without further ado, I'm extremely happy that today we are hosted here today and supported by our partners from Financial Times, Sofia. We are using this room for a second time in a row on numerous occasions, so we are very pleased not only to use the premises, but to have in Financial Times face a true supporter when it comes to inclusion and diversity. And I would like to give the floor to Nicola Ivanov, the technical director at FT Sofia, who is actually the first person at FT Sofia, another historical figure when we talk about history. So Nicola, the floor is yours, and here's the mic. Thank you.
Thank you, Moni. Are you hearing me okay? Is everything fine? Cool. All right, so first of all, thank you all for being here. Thank you all for attending. I have the privilege to be sort of your host in the FT office today, and I'm really glad to see so many faces, so many new faces, and I would love to meet you in person. So let me tell you a bit about myself. I'm Nicola Ivanov, as Moni already said. I'm one of the technical directors at Financial Times. I'm responsible for the tech leadership of 2 of our product pillars. They take care of our B2B business, and they take care of our events business. So this is something probably new for most of you. We have a huge event business, which is very much in growth right now. with more than 250 events. So I would encourage you to go and visit some of them. So I wanted to talk to you about, this is me and this is my team. These are the people that I spend the most time nowadays. This is the technology leadership group. They are, as you can probably see, or not see, from the pictures, they're all amazing people. And don't tell them, I love them. I love them not just because they are all amazing and we complement each other, but because I can be myself in that team. I can express myself, I can express my opinions, and I know that even if when I'm wrong, and I'm wrong a lot of time, they're gonna accept me. They're gonna tell me you are slightly wrong, but that's okay. And I'm really pleased that I'm part of this whole group because this team actually represents what Financial Times Product and Technology is. A team of multinational, diverse people which have one thing in common. They're very inclusive, and they want to include others and make sure that we work together for the better, not only for our company, but for the better for our quality journalism and for the better of course, for everyone else. So before I go to Proud FT and why I became a sponsor of Proud FT, I wanted to talk a little bit about the history. So this picture is from 1940, or sometime that in the 40s. And maybe some of you can see a pattern there. I think it is the desks, but if you have further opinion, you can tell me in the break. This was the typical newsroom back in the days in New York. And then I can give you another historical picture. Those were the readers of New York Times during those days. Again, might be a pattern there. You can tell me in the break. What changed so far in the last now 80 years is huge, and change is always connected to history. That's why we shouldn't forget history. We should be able to take it into account, to learn from it, and to make sure that we are better the next day. Now the world is very different now. Not just because we have so many nationalities, we work with very closely with so many different people. It's not just ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, anything, you name it. It's our audience, our FT audience has grown so much, and it's never been more diverse and more colorful, if I might put it that way. It's a colorful people that can express themselves, and they want to learn. They want to receive the quality journalism of the FT, because this is our value. This is the value that we bring to the world. Not the next information which is just, as nowadays, generated probably from some AI, but information which allows you to be better professional, to be able to work better in and to become to grow in your career. Now, as Moni mentioned that, I actually signed first with FT Sofia, which was 5 years and 2 weeks ago, exactly. I still remember what our Chief Product Technology Officer, John Kundert, told me when we first met. He said, when we build these operations here, the most important thing that we do is that we make sure that we do it right. We create the right values, we create the FT values, and for this space to be driver of those values, not just have them as a given. And this kind of stuck with me for all those years. And I think it's a really great way to start something. Start it with the right intention and the right culture, so that we can create the atmosphere and the space that we all want to work in. And now, 5 years later, I'm very proud to say that here in this office work more than 200 people. We have 7 different ethnicities, we have so many different people that even people moved from abroad to come and work for the FT here. And I'm really pleased to say that after 5 years, we still have the same values. I still feel very safe to be myself when I come here and talk to anyone in the office or outside or in the pub next door. So I'm quite happy of what we managed to achieve, of course, with everyone else in the organization. Now, let's talk a bit about Proud FT, but first of all, I want to talk about what I think was missing in FT Sofia. One thing that I always sensed, which was making people very enthusiastic, and I've seen that many times in London, was our ERG groups. It's not just Proud FT, which supports, of course, our LGBTI community, but it's also FT Embrace, FT Women. Those minorities in the company which I saw that passion in everyone in those groups of actually how can we better at making sure that everyone feels safe, everyone feels comfortable when they come to work, and that way I think that we can make sure that we complement each other and give the best results. Now, why I chose Proudity to become a sponsor and ally? First of all, I think we all agree that there is plenty of things and improvements that we can do in not just Sofia, but the rest of the organizations throughout the whole country in this area. But I also think that as an ally and as a product and technology leader, I'm able to reach to a bigger audience than the ERG group itself. And I think that's extremely valuable because when people don't know about something, it's very hard to understand it better, to be part of it, to want to be included in everything that this group does. And I'm very happy to say that together with, of course, the team, and probably this is the time for me to thank, I know that Jamie Brown is somewhere on the calls or somewhere in the internet. Jamie Brown is our Proud FT London lead at the moment. And together with Iravan and Lina, we managed to not just transfer what we have right there in London, not just simply copy paste, this is what they do there, this is what we do here, the same thing, because this wouldn't have worked. I think that the most valuable thing is that they came, and with their expertise and with our guidance, we managed to form Proud FT to be a place suited for the different locations, the place suited for the different needs of the, because we all have different history, we all are in a different position in the timelines of the development of the countries. And I'm very happy to say that we put a lot of effort in this one, but we already see great results in this area. Now, change is a very hard thing. It's a very difficult thing to change not only organizations, but to change people's mindset. And when I became a sponsor of this one, I knew that I would find support within our Sofia product and technology part. And I'm happy to say that I received so much endorsement and so much support, not only from the participants in the Proud FT group itself, but also from external parties, from our colleagues. And it's actually very enthusiastic to execute this change when you have the support of so many other people. And I think that the way to move forward is to continue in this area, to continue to strive to reach bigger audiences. And I have to say I'm extremely thankful to everyone here, no matter whether you are part of any of those groups, no matter if you are an ally like myself, or you want to contribute. I want to thank you, because that way, together, we can reach much bigger audience. We can make this place a very inclusive place for everyone. I always say this: inclusion is not one-directional. Inclusion is bi-directional. And that's why we need to make sure that we include each other and make it a better place for all of us. Events like this one and the previous event which we had with the journalists, for me, are outstanding. I believe that with such kind of dedication and such kind of effort, we will be able to not change just the business sectors, the IT sector that we currently work with, or other business areas. I think that we'll be able to change society if we are working together and working as one. So thank you, everyone. I'm really honored to be part of this group, and I couldn't be more happier to see so many new faces here. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola. Thank you once again for the hospitality and for being a sponsor and embracing diversity and inclusion. As I've heard today from a person I really admire, diversity and inclusion is a marathon. It's not a sprint, so we should all be doing the marathon, and thank you for the good work. So we're going to move to the first panel, the established family circle. And I'm going to ask with me here on the stage Paulina Vidas, the head of marketing and communications at MasterCard. Pauli, you're welcome to take this very seat. Dr. Shirley Knowles, the chief inclusion and diversity officer at Progress. From there. Okay, sorry. Pauli from there. Okay. So you are here. Thanks. Svetlina Ivanova-Koicheva, HR partner and IDN lead at Accenture Bulgaria. Welcome, Sveti. And last but not least, Ariel Antonelli, the director and legal counsel at EMEA and Ingram Micro. Welcome. And before we start, there is a video we would like to show you. Right? Okay. All right. I'm getting mixed. There is a video I'd like to show you.
Handing over my card makes me feel very anxious and nervous.
Just a total invalidation of my identity. I tried not to focus on that because it happens so often.
I used to have moments of anxiety and moments of panic.
It puts me in a place where I feel like I'm in danger. It just sucks every single time.
They look at it and they look at you, and they look at it and they look at you.
Oh, is this actually you?
Are you serious? Oh my God.
Stop. That's so cool.
That's incredible. That's who I am.
Okay, we are back. I hope this video really brought a message to the topics that we're going to discuss in the panel. And Polly, we're going to start with you, as there was a video from MasterCard which we saw. MasterCard joined Sofia Pride last year in an interesting, creative, and I would say out-of-the-box way. And we're going to talk about how this actually has influenced your corporate culture. But do share with us a bit more about last year's participation and why diversity and inclusion when it comes to LGBTI people is so important at MasterCard, not only in Bulgaria, but globally.
Yes, thank you, Moni. I would like to give some kind of a background, though, because it's important for the understanding how we are in Bulgaria and how we are global. So in Bulgaria, actually, we are a very small team, 10 people, and we doubled maybe for the last year, 20 people, total of MasterCard employees and team. Which makes it a family. I'm in this family panel. So we are actually a very small family, and our DEI values come from the very beginning, and since I'm involved as a hobby in group psychology, I can share with you that the values always come with the first hire person. And for many years, MasterCard was only one person, our country manager, and she's still the country manager for Bulgaria. So her values from the very beginning are very inclusive, and this has transferred to every people who are hired. Generally, though, we absolutely follow the global MasterCard inclusion policy, and this is a top priority for the company. And it's not only just saying it, but MasterCard was elected as a by the Diversity Inc. Ranking just last month on top 1, and last year we were on the 2nd place. So we are very, very proud that globally we have reached an inclusion of female, LGBT, ethnics, and all kinds of community social areas are covered in MasterCard. We joined Sofia Pride after actually we already did something very courageous for our market. We are a B2B company, and we work with all the banks and merchants on every market. And we do many events and experiences for our partners. So actually, even with before joining the Sofia Pride in the pandemic, we made our yearly party in the venue of the where the steps, where it's like a hub for LGBT people, and we invited all our business partners there. So I would share that it was there was a discussion in within our small team family. How would they react? How do they feel? Whether they will appreciate this or feel comfortable? And we are very happy that we did it, because actually everyone was really very proactive to come and share this special moment with us. As for the Sofia Pride, last year...
there were also some drag queens at your party?
Yes, we had a drag queen bingo, like an entertainment.
Yeah,
and
it's very
it was
popular
really successful, yes. And for the Sofia Pride last year, we actually wanted to do more. And we hope to be able to do it in this year, next year to come. What we did is, under our global message of being your true identity is priceless. This was featured in the video. Actually, we believe in MasterCard that every one of us has a unique, like fingerprint identity that has to be appreciated. And we created under this message a merchandise that we actually sold, and the money we invested in creating and producing it, then we sold it, and with the money we donated to the Pride event to support it. Yeah. What else? I would also want to add that, and I have some pictures about it, it was our invitation from our media agency to share some of our media spaces for free for announcing the Pride. And also the visual was, and the idea was from every color of the rainbow to be adopted by a company. And with you, yes, all the other partners of the Pride were featured and adopted one of the colors of the rainbow.
Exactly.
And,
yeah. This was last year's campaign, and it was a really step forward for corporations embracing, like really putting a rainbow out there. That is what I wanted to mention, that it was really for us a unique model of actually giving us the tools to fundraise additionally on top of what you as a company are doing. And that's why we wanted to share with it. Thank you, Polly. We'll be back to you. Ariel, Ingram Micro has been supporting us for a lot of years now.
Since 2019,
Since
I think it was the first one that we supported.
How has that influenced the support of Sofia Pride? Has it influenced your internal corporate culture and environment? Were there any discussions about it? Tell us about your experience.
So actually, Ingram is a global company, and we operate in many markets, so is diverse per se, culturally, and etc. So back in 2018, we started here in Bulgaria with, as part of our corporate social responsibility and diversity and inclusion team, in order to make sure not only the LGBT people, but also cultural diversity and etc. And one of the pillars was, well, we have to tackle also this, although in this market may be a little bit more complex than in others, Western Europe and etc. Well, we started working with GLAS on how to tackle it, and is probably one of the things that we have to acknowledge is that this diversity and inclusion process, as you said before, and it was saying, it's not kind of a switch and you turn it on and then everyone is inclusive and etc. It's a little bit of a marathon, and you have to go step by step. So one of the things that it started was conversations, sometimes not very polite, sometimes not very accepting, but we decided when we announced from within the organization, so when we announced it, there was some pushback on some sectors, which eventually it was overcome, and we decided to continue going forward with that. The result is that it's been, what, 6 years almost, and things are going great. That those conversations that were generated also helped to dust some issues of misunderstandings, of misconceptions about things.
Do they still exist?
There always exists.
Okay,
so that is something that we are 1,300 employees here in Bulgaria. So you can imagine that there is about everything. But that has not prevented. The idea is some of our tenets of success are creativity or imagination and talent. You cannot, as a company, have talent if you are not exposed to having people of many different backgrounds. So you have to feel, and it doesn't stop at the time of hiring. It continues on having that people being comfortable with who they are, not wasting energy in trying to be somebody else at work. And that leads you to inclusion and to belonging and to creating an environment where people is comfortable being who they are.
What is your advice to companies who are now listening and haven't taken this courageous step sometimes actually to support an event like that, and hearing from you that there was some kind of discussion and backlash that really might get them scared somehow, that they shouldn't do it, that it's a controversial topic? How do you think you can address that?
So at the end is why are you doing this? And if your values are that you do it because it's the right thing to do it, well, I think that you cannot do other ways than going forward. And all this thing of diversity and inclusion, I think that one important thing to say is that it cannot be used as a whitewash of image. It's something that either you really believe in and you act what you say, or you better think about something else in terms of marketing. At Ingram, we do believe it from the core, from corporate, locally also. And one of the important things is that is a top-down message. I mean, the message from the top has to be very clear that what we support, which are our values, and continue the conversation and the education, because otherwise it remains only as just a press release. And that is not intentional. Luckily, in our company, we have been continuous on that since since 2019. And it also changes the culture of the company. Changing the culture takes time.
Absolutely.
And it's not something,
minds.
exactly, it's not something that you can change from one day to the other. And it takes perseverance and tackling conversations that may be uncomfortable sometimes. But if that is what it takes and those are your values, you go forward.
Yeah. Sometimes it takes, it takes a lot. Thank you. Dr. Shirley knows from Progress. Progress has been also a true ally and supporter to the LGBTI community. Progress was the first company which reached out after the attack on the Rainbow Hub, the community center, and made a generous donation for the reopening of the Rainbow Hub. And as an interesting consequences during that time, or maybe it wasn't consequences, you're going to tell us, an employee resource group, an ERG, was formed at Progress Bulgaria. So was that because of your engagement with the local LGBTI organizations, or do you think it was, how did it happen? Was it related to that?
So the donation came really from our employee resource group, bringing it to my attention to say, this has happened in Bulgaria. This is a place where people can feel psychologically safe, and in the place where you're supposed to feel safe, it was unsafe, where someone was attacked and property was destroyed, and we feel strongly about making that donation. And to be quite honest, it wasn't a hard sell for me to make the donation. You know, as a person that comes from a marginalized group, I know what it feels like to have someone attack a place that you see as a place of hope, a center of hope. So it was not hard to convince me to do the donation, but it was also me communicating what had happened to our senior leaders. And so I know that we had just mentioned that a lot of the messaging needs to come from the top down, but there are moments where it can come from, you know, a grassroots effort where someone in a location or someone within a community can say, this is important and this is something that we should bring attention to or participate in or do an event around. And many times that is what makes the difference. I would not have known about the Rainbow Hub on my own, and I do give a lot of credit. I tell people it's not the Shirley Show just because I lead inclusion and diversity at the company. It is a community effort, and that is really, in my opinion, the only way that you will see long-term, sustainable success when it comes to these spaces and giving back and having those partnerships.
Also, maybe to mention to the people who are watching online or here in the audience, maybe they are from a small company and they're unaware what an ERG is. So if you can just briefly, I know we talked about it today as well, so if you can just briefly tell us what is the idea behind it, and is it applicable to all size fits companies or
Right.
Yeah.
So some people call them employee resource groups. Other organizations may call them affinity groups or business resource groups. But at the end of the day, it is a group that is used as a resource for a group of people, whether or not you belong to that community. So as an example, at Progress, we have 7 different employee resource groups. One is dedicated to the LGBTI community. And what that group does for people that have come out and said that they are gay, maybe some people who have not come out yet but are still looking for a safe space, this group has created, again, a psychologically safe spot where you can be yourself. You can talk about catastrophic events that are happening within the community. You can talk about events where you want to celebrate and bring a spotlight to various communities. There are donations that are done, volunteer events that happened. Last year, actually, we weren't able to do as much as we wanted to here in Sofia. And so my team member said, what we should do is a Pride Walk in Boston. And it really honestly was grassroots, and I have to give all credit to my team member Courtney, and we had someone from our Inclusion and Diversity Committee that within the span of 3 weeks or so put together this walk where we had the executive sponsor of that group participate. We had our CEO out participating. They had signs, they had flags. They did a donation to an organization called the Trevor Project, which helps teens that may have been kicked out of their homes because they are gay, right? And so it provides resources to that group. And they raised that money. And just to have your senior leaders there, to have employees there. There was one woman that brought her mother who's in a wheelchair, and she pushed her around the route. Some folks brought their dogs, and it was just a low-key community event that made all of the difference. And again, it was a grassroots, this is important effort. And so now this year, if I'm not mistaken, we are going to do that same walk in multiple locations. And these are, again, our employees that are saying this is important to us, and we're going to do this in support of this community. So all of that came from an employee resource group.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and sometimes it could be something very simple, like really wearing a t-shirt or participating in an event. Even if you are an ally or not, LGBTI or not, it really can speak a lot about support and inclusion and visibility. Thank you, Shirley. Tsveti, up to you, and of course Accenture as a company who has been active in the field in the last several years. How did things change? Was there any change in the corporate environment after your support for Sofia Pride?
Yes, thank you, Moni. Just to say that since we mentioned that inclusion and diversity is like a marathon, Accenture has been running that marathon for a really, really long time. Actually, our first global inclusion and diversity committee dates back to 1995. That's when Accenture started working and working on their policies and strategies, creating a global team that could help each location. Accenture operates around the world in 200 cities and 50 countries, and Bulgaria is one of them. So here we are really happy to have a huge global support, an allyship, and a created network globally that we can actually use locally, use their resources, use a lot of available abundance of materials that we could readily try to implement locally. But of course, what is most important is our coordination, cooperation, and support of local communities. So on one hand, our global I&D team helped us immensely and gave us a lot of opportunities and freedom. But at the same time, I think it was very crucial that we started supporting Sofia Pride. Last year, we started our sponsorship. Had a stand at Sofia Pride. Actually, we openly communicated that to our employees, externally, everywhere. And I think it made a tremendous change because we actually showed our employees that this is not just some global I&D policy that we have. We are not just using some corporate emails and flags and things like that without actually standing behind those words. So I would like to say that thanks to our cooperation and collaboration with you and the initiative that you had last year with the coming out interviews, we had actually our employee that did the coming out at work interview.
Oh, really?
Yes, which was followed by her mother, who is actually also our employee, and she did the proud parent employee. They shared their struggles, their challenges, how they overcome them, how the mother supported her daughter through the journey, and eventually they ended up to be our employees here at Accenture Bulgaria.
Yeah, and they came to Sofia Pride last year, right?
Yes, that's correct. The whole family came to Sofia Pride, which was such a fantastic moment for all of us. And I think their openness, their readiness is actually a proof of the safe environment, safe and inclusive environment that we have created at Accenture Bulgaria. And this wouldn't have happened without the collaboration with GLAS and Work It Out. We really believe that through the support of the local NGOs, through businesses' active collaboration with the NGOs can we really positively impact our society and show our people at the organizations that we really stand behind our words and take actions.
Were there any negative reaction, again, inside the company from your open invitation to join your stand at Sofia Pride, or did you encounter anything?
No, actually, we did not encounter any negative reactions. There was a lot of surprise, to be honest. People were kind of not expected that, I would say. But we had a lot of our employees visit us at the stand. We were there all day, taking pictures, enjoying the moment, supporting our local community. And we had a lot of our employees who were actually part of that community come out openly, choose this opportunity to express freely who they are without any fear of discrimination, and actually join our I&D committee. It kind of grew because of that.
Yeah, no, it's thank you so much for this story. It's really it's so important, and it's always so inspiring, of course, but so literally magical to hear how small things can lead to this bigger change. And smoothly, I'm going to go in the other topic, and this is a question to all of you, so whoever feels free to answer. But because of that support and because of publicly acknowledging internally and externally your support for the LGBTI community and Sofia Pride, did you had to somehow adapt your communication? Did you encounter some issue with external stakeholders or other companies? How did you feel in the bigger pool of not only your company, but all this, the bigger industry somehow? Tough question.
In our case, I think we didn't have to adapt anything. I mean, a lot of our communication strategy, like it happens with Accenture, comes from global teams, and it was not anything new. We had, for example, and we have, when we engage with external suppliers, that they ascribe to certain values that the company has, that they don't discriminate. So that one was not, we also didn't have any reaction from participating, any negative reaction from participating from external stakeholders. I think that on that one, it was pretty much the same in our case. I don't know if for others. It's true, Ingram Micro doesn't have a lot of external stakeholders in Bulgaria. But for the others,
I can say that in general, and I'm coming from marketing, in general, everywhere in the world for the last 2 years, the communication, we see how it's changing. For MasterCard, it changed many years ago, actually, but the message that we want to deliver these days is that we are doing well only by doing good. So the CSR era in the forum, it existed before, just donating some money for something, and green, whitewashing, whatever, rainbow washing, it's over. And all the companies need to create innovations and solutions that integrate the social values in their core proposal on the market. And this changes a lot, everything. All kinds of communication, the products, the one that was featured in the video. I just want to say a few words on it. It's a card that you can feature your chosen name on it. It's a payment card. And I will honestly tell you that this is not a real business how to say, successful, so seeking a business return at this moment, because the communities and the society is relatively fresh for such a product, but this is a statement that we want to make, that we have to have these products and solutions every day, not just in June. And
it's very important.
Yes. And just to tick some kind of a box in some kind of an agenda.
I would even, just to add on to what you have said, the time for talking and just doing a donation one time a year You know, that time has passed, and now people are demanding action. Because you can see through the corporate, you know, box checking, and when people are not authentically behind a community. And especially now in various parts of the world, and I would even say within the United States, you're starting to see a pushback from opposing sides that are not happy with the progress that has been made. They're not happy with people being able to put their chosen name on cards. And now there's a resistance that has always been there, but it is now bubbling up, and people are more vocal about it. And so it's even more important to have products and have marketing that really does show that support. At the end of the day, I have told folks the inclusion, the diversity, the equity pieces are all important, but the most important thing is the B, which is belonging. If I feel like I belong at this organization, this company supports me, they have products that are inclusive of my needs, I am going to be a patron of their product, or I would like to work for that organization and stay there. But if you know, you just have DEI initiatives, but that belonging is lacking, you just see a rotation of people coming in and out of your organization. So it is the B, but also taking that real action that makes the difference, and not just having nice words that you're putting on a press release, and there's nothing else behind that.
Yeah. Sofia, any remarks on
yes, actually, yeah, we have always been very open in our communication. I don't see any changes in that.
Because you have external...
Yes, of course, we do. We try to, as much as possibly, showcase what is happening internally at Accenture Bulgaria, what kind of events, initiatives we are organizing. So, as you just mentioned, that there are real people behind the initiatives. It's not just some words, and we are just not ticking some boxes in our global I&D policies. So we are really focused on that, emphasizing our people, what actions they have taken. We really believe that actually our I&D committee, similar to the ERGs, is entirely comprised of our people. They organize, they create, execute events that they would like to see. They actively support causes that they truly believe in, and this is really the key to the success of these causes. So our communication is focused on that, on emphasizing on our people, showcasing our people.
There is a very practical and good example, which I remember from your experience happening during Pride Month. What was the name of the campaign, where on your desktop computers at work at Accenture, like people had to, every time they, on their start screen, there was an information about the queer icon or an LGBTI famous writer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. We had a very successful campaign based on that. But as you earlier mentioned, small steps really matter. And for example, today on this big day for all of us, we started our communication and throughout all our allies with 3 simple actions that they can take to support their local communities. And they're really simple 3 steps, like one of them is put a sticker on your computer or wear a pin. Learn something new about, learn something new about the abbreviation of the LGBTIQ+, what it means. If you don't know, then educate yourself, learn more about it so that you have the open mindset and understanding. And the third one is if you meet someone who is not practicing inclusive behaviors or has a struggle with that, tell them carefully to be more mindful. So small steps like that really matter, and this is one thing we started today at our organization, just reminding people these 3 important things. Very small step, but really helping us toward the big change.
We also very often say that if you don't know anything, just don't be afraid to ask. There are abbreviations, there are terms which might be a bit confusing. So it's better really to be honest and ask that there's something that you don't understand, even if that's very practical at a level of everyday communication.
Absolutely.
Because we're talking, of course, about Sofia Pride, but I want to really zoom out a little bit and go to the big topic, diversity and inclusion. You're all in this field. It is something that I mentioned it at the beginning. It was such a terra incognita when we first started working on and building the Work It Out platform for diversity and inclusion of LGBTI employees. And I remember that it was so hard to get to know companies, what it is about, why is it important. But all of a sudden, several years later, it has not just become a trend, it has become a corporate identity and really part of the value. And you as experts, what advices can you give to companies of how they should frame better the whole narrative? Where should they start from if they haven't had any experience? Anything from your experience which could be beneficial to companies here in the room or watching us online. And I know it's a big topic, but something which could be found there. Shirley, maybe I'm going to start with you.
So, you had asked earlier about resource groups and can you have them at companies of every size, right? And the answer is yes, you can. If there is a community of people, you can have a group that can support any number of populations. I think, for someone that is at the starting line of their diversity and inclusion journey, it may seem very overwhelming to do any of the things that we're talking about here, especially since we, at this point, have a history of really putting in the time and the effort. But I think if you are willing to even go online, right, and learn about various communities locally within your city or country, but also expand things globally, you will see that there are people from marginalized communities in every corner of the world. And I think wanting to learn and educate yourself and understand will really become the foundation of the work that you can implement within your organization. I would also say you should not do this work in a performative way, right? You should authentically want to help, promote, develop, grow, hire people from all walks of life. And I was here in Sofia in February to lead a diversity and inclusion academy. And just even sitting in the room of 25 people and walking through what diversity is, because there were people that thought it's tied to the LGBTI community, it's gender or it's ethnicity, and that's it. I mean, there were some folks that felt that way. But to sit there and explain it can be the language that you speak, your religion, your skill set, education, like that for many people was that aha moment where they were sitting there saying, I didn't see it in that way, number one. And number two, I can see how I belong to one of these key phrases, right? And then the conversations happen, and that's when the work can begin. But there are many resources out there that can, again, help guide you on your journey. So I'm not sure if that fully answers your question, but that at least is where, partially where we have started at Progress and where we continue to make the advancements in this space.
Yeah, and of course, there are country specifics, and you as a global company has to take that into consideration. But you're absolutely right that we are all parts of minorities and no different, so it's important.
Yes.
In Ingram, I think, as you said, is probably if a small company is looking at it as a whole and what every one of these big companies do, and we have work groups in the case of Ingram, we have diversity and inclusion ambassadors in the countries, we have a structured program that we do to all of our employees when they start. That is kind of a lot. And probably it should start with some small steps, like first probably approaching the topic and seeing what is it about, why should, they may question why should I do it, and start looking into first all the advantages and how the society is moving around it. But not only from that point of view is what do I believe in, and set that tone. And from there, just informing yourself and informing your organization about those groups that, as you say, is very local in nature, because there may be countries where you don't have a problem of diversity, of racial diversity, because they are very homogeneous and they don't have that much of an issue with that, but they have internally their own groups that may feel marginalized or that they are minorities. So starting to understand what is it about, I think that is a huge step. And from there is just little steps and incremental value to that. It ends up being instinctive. I mean, you don't think that you're doing diversity and inclusion anymore. It should be a way of being and not a performative thing. So when that permeates the whole organization, it comes naturally.
Yeah.
Well, I could also add up to that. Even if you have a company as small as 10, 20 people, for sure there's one person who follows the topic. It's a hugely discussed topic. Everyone is involved, and all of us are diverse in some way, as you mentioned. So even if it's a small company, you can start the discussion. You can have such kind of a workshop, for example, on inclusivity, on explaining some small terms to people, letting them express themselves. So once you actually just give the start to the people of the organization, I really believe that they take the ball and actually start playing it themselves, start organizing themselves. And if they feel safe and encouraged and supported by their leadership, they would actively participate in that, and a lot of initiatives could come of that.
Yeah, yeah. Paul, do you have something to add on?
I would add to all this great advice that was given, some different perspective. In MasterCard, we always start with analyzing data, and we put the human in the center. So it could be the internal, analyzing the data from internal feedback and giving voice to what people need, voice like GLAS. And this could be also applied to consumers, who we see a major shift, like 80% of the Generation Z, as it is called, is seeking for some definite statement from the company on these topics.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And they, we live in this culture of cancel. They can cancel a whole brand because of a wrong statement and not taking in consideration what is important for people. So first of all, we need to put the people on the spotlight. This is their real insight and thinking and needs, and then everything will follow.
Yeah, we all have high hopes for the Gen Zs that are really going to change the world, but it's also a two-way street with the cancel culture, that it's so easy for a brand which has been doing a lot, and one wrong step in the wrong direction could lead to this. But this is something that definitely it's further in the discussion. I know it's unscripted, but I also wanted to talk about and to touch base about something that we see so frequently happening during the month of June. And those are not companies like you, but companies who are just, oh, it's June, let's put the rainbow logo on social media just to be in line with everything, maybe release a product which we can sell and then just be silent for the rest of the year, or whatever is happening with the LGBTI community, we really don't have to remind ourselves. It's, as we probably some of us are aware about the term pinkwashing, but, and Polly mentioned in the beginning that those terms are kind of, fading away, but I still see that not a trend, but as a phenomenon. And how can we escape that as companies, as NGOs, as prides? How can we create this bigger culture and a cooperation where we're not just seen as money bags and a good publicity, but seen as valuable partners?
So I definitely have an answer to this. To your point, there are companies that will, again, change a logo, or they are doing this one-time donation to this NGO, and that's the last time you hear from them, right? It's in June. Back to your point, we have moved past this performative, we're going to do these one or two things during this 1 month and that's it. Consumers, people in general are really becoming, I mean, they're already smart, but they're looking at these organizations saying, I've never seen you in the community on a Tuesday in September, right? Like I don't see you there. Your employees will start to say, I have never seen you as the senior leader of an organization or as a people manager. I have never seen you develop and promote someone from this community. And so there will be, you know, it's already here, but there will continue to be this external pressure around accountability. You need to show up and do what I call the soft things every single day. And that type of stuff is important. If you're doing it, as we say, you know, once a month and it's this one big display of we support you, and then there's nothing else, people pick up on that. And that is true of many communities. It's not just the LGBTI community, but you know, I will even say in the United States, we have many heritage months. Right now, we are in Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Before that, we, let's see, May, April. So we have Women's History Month.
African American History Month.
We have African American History Month in February. And, you know, again, you see companies that are doing commercials online but again, some of these things become performative, and so it is the showing up every day that makes the difference. So for anyone here or watching online, how can you be different? It's the showing up part and showing up as much as you can and supporting various marginalized communities.
Well, I would say that it takes some courage to understand that there will be also pushback, as you said. But this, it's not possible to stay stagnated.
No.
Risk is something that drives us further and drives the growth.
Svetlana, do you have any additions?
Yes, I would also add into that you really need to continue the conversation, to keep the discussion going, not just in June. We are actually trying to bridge that gap through our action plans that we have in our I&D committee. We have our people planning actions and events for each month of the year with accountability, execution, and everything else. We also really believe that we should support our NGOs, local NGOs, not just the ones supporting the LGBTIQ+ community, but we have a number of NGOs really working towards disability inclusion, gender equality, and we really should engage them as well so that we continue this discussion and conversation beyond the month of June. So we have taken an active step in that. Earlier this year in February, we used the opportunity to combine a lot of NGOs, different representations, a lot of businesses, and organize a forum similar to this one, where we discussed how we can better support our local LGBTIQ.
Not only LGBTI,
not only this community. Spoke a lot about gender equality in women in business and disability inclusion as well. So the feedback that we got was that people really need forums like that, place where they can openly discuss and share best practices so that they can be more engaging and more active throughout the rest of the year and not just have one event.
Yeah. I think I absolutely agree with everything that they have said, and as I have said a little bit from the beginning, if you don't live but the values that you preach, is not only just an attempt to whitewash, it creates, and we were discussing it before, it creates a double edge, because people, your employees or externally, start seeing your attitude with cynicism, and it creates actually bad press for you. You are not reliable anymore if you say one thing and act in a different one. And that is for diversity and inclusion, is for ethics, is for everything. So I think that these events like Pride in June help remind us, celebrate certain things, but is the way in which you behave every day, the diverse and inclusive environment that you create, the feeling of belonging that you create in the different people that come, could be from one community or from the other. We work with Jamba, we work with other organizations. If you are not able to live by those values, then you are dead. Simple as that.
Basically that. And to close up this panel, I also want to provoke you once again and take you out of your comfort zone, because what do we do with the white, cis, heterosexual men who are so much lately feeling discriminated because they're not presented? Or we hear that kind of why there are so many resource groups and we're doing so many for different minorities and not for the minority of white heterosexual men. And we also very often see them as leaders when it comes to backlash of products or your public support for Pride or something like that. How do you think we should address this non-minority or majority in our society and US corporations?
So I think that they can benefit from this, because I don't think that we have to understand as diversity and inclusion as just helping minorities.
Exactly.
I think it's making everyone feel belonging to whichever group is, if it is a business organization, it's a business organization. And we have also to underline some of the, and we have done it also in Ingram, for example, for November, that we have the Men's Health Month, and remind of certain aspects that society is not so aware of. The incidence in suicide in men, the index in testicle cancer in young men, and prostate cancer. So the disadvantages of an excess masculinized society for men, the things that they are missing about participating on the growing up of their children, about psychological problems that it causes, that upholding of feelings and etc. So I think that they are not, it's not one against others. They are part of the same group that is another group that has different issues and that we have to be aware of too.
So I will say there are many white, cis, heterosexual men in my life that I care for very dearly. They are great people, and they definitely support this work. But of course, you meet some that are against the work. And there are a couple of things, or a few things that I like to ask when I am challenged. And I will always tell them I'm interested in hearing your perspective, because I think when you shut down that opposing perspective, that's when that anger starts to really bubble up and boil over. So I will say to them, what is it about seeing other people that don't look like you celebrated when you are so used to seeing yourself and people who look like you or act like you in the spotlight, right? Is it that you feel as though we're now highlighting women when traditionally we have always looked at men as the patriarchs of the family? You go to work, you earn the money, you make the decisions. Are you uncomfortable with that piece? So it's more of like a discussion, but you're also pushing back on them to ask them to define what is it that they don't like. Another thing that I like to do with them is to think about parts of themselves or think about moments in their life where they have been the minority or they've been the marginalized group. And that could even go down to a disability, right? A learning disability. You may have grown up being dyslexic and you're in a classroom and everyone else gets the assignment and everyone else does the assignment the way that it's supposed to be done, and you are constantly flipping letters and numbers, and how isolated that made you feel and how it made you shut down, right, for some folks. And so I say to them, now I want you to think about how you felt in that moment, and then I want you to apply that to every day of your life being from this community, right? Someone with either a visible a physical disability, or someone that is a person of color, or a woman, or someone who is transitioning, right? And the looks and the stares and the discrimination that these people receive every day. It's a lot. And so when you try to approach some of this work from a place of understanding, and I do recognize that there are many leaders of diversity, equity, and inclusion that do not have the patience for that type of step-by-step process, but I do. But I try to get them to see it from that perspective, to get them to understand the heavy load that people from marginalized communities carry with them every single day. Being afraid to walk into a room as, someone who's in drag, as you were talking about before, and being afraid that someone is going to attack you just by how you look. It's a very heavy load to carry, and so it is a discussion, but it's not an easy one. And so, again, I tell those men, you will be okay, right? You are not losing any privileges. But it's okay to let other people step into the spotlight and have some of the same privilege and access to opportunities that you have held pretty much for all of, at least in the United States, but in various countries, you have held the power for so long.
Yeah. Ladies, any thoughts? Or?
Yes, similar here. I had a discussion with such a white man on a very good position, and actually asking for support for our I&D initiatives and so on. And what he told me was, okay, I will agree to everything that you have proposed, but I just don't understand why this community needs to parade, why they need to showcase so much. I just don't want them to be in our faces so much.
Yeah.
And I was saying, well, heterosexuality and everything else is pretty much everywhere. It's on TV, it's on advertisements everywhere. Why do you think then this community is in any way being in your face just by saying that they're there and by wanting their rights to be kept and to feel equal? So I think discussions with such kind of individuals is very important, just to make their mindset a little bit open up, and to really show them that yes, you will be okay, but let other people also express themselves and just try to understand their point of view. And of course, in our organization, just because we celebrate International Women's Day, we decided that, of course, our men should not be forgotten, our brothers, fathers, and male colleagues. So last year, for the first time, we had a huge celebration for International Men's Day.
All right. When is it? I don't even
November
know.
11.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, November 11.
Okay,
so, just so that no white man, heterosexual, feels excluded.
Exactly.
We are incorporating that celebration as well at Accenture. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Polly, any thoughts from maybe from psychotherapist point of view, even talking about mental health or not?
Psychotherapy was covered very well. I would say that this empathy, unfortunately, is built very early in childhood. So what we do in MasterCard, especially locally, we want to support education and support programs for education in all kinds of the ESG areas. This is not connected to branded content because we cannot advertise to children, obviously, but we should not forget that all the roots are from the childhood. Unfortunately, in our region, geographically, we see not only everywhere in the world, but we just in this month we saw something very terrible happened in neighborhood country. So aggression in school is something absolutely, how to say, that has to be addressed in by all means, not only for with the message of inclusion, but inclusion of the human right to live. So this is like a very, very big, more important even situation from the basics. And what we have, how we understand in MasterCard inclusion is to include everyone in the digital economy, so that everyone is possible to thrive, and everyone has his place, her place, their place, and everyone actually. So it's not a matter of who is white or not, man or not, it's a matter of human dignity, basic human dignity.
Thank you. I think that's the great closing of actually this panel. panel, and it's about human dignity after all, and I would really like to thank you for your participation today, for your continuous support, for being great allies, for coming to Sofia Pride. I hope I'm going to see most of you, not all of you, on June 17th. And again, thank you for actually being brave and courageous and showing it to other companies that this is the way. And it is about human dignity. So for everyone watching us online, this was the first panel of Sofia Pride Business Forum, the first Sofia Pride Business Forum. And for everyone here in the room, if there are any questions, we can take maybe one or two. I don't know how we are doing with the time. But if there is any question, we can take maybe one for the panelists. Questions first. 2, 3? No? Of course, we're going to go with the questions in the networking area. So we're going to do a quick break, and I will be handing over to my colleague Sofia for the second panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. There is coffee and food over there.
very anxious and
Hello, everyone. My name is Sofia, and I'm a part of the GLAS Foundation. I am the program manager for Work It Out, the business platform that we are actually engaging businesses in our initiatives. We help businesses throughout their diversity and inclusion, building their diversity and inclusion at the workplace. And I'm very excited to have you here today, honestly, because I've put so much effort to make this forum happen. And I'm really glad to see so many people. I'm really glad for all the guests that accepted our invitation, because they truly brought value and meaning to this event. And that was kind of the goal. And I already have my guests for the second panel, which I'm going to moderate. So I would like to present first Galina Georgieva. She is the queen bee at Work Nomads, a very prospective business that actually opened last year, and they're doing really interesting stuff. So Galina is going to share more about that. We also have Boris Kolev, who is a social entrepreneur and one of the co-founders of Employee. He has started so many businesses, and I honestly consider him as my mentor in so many ways. We also have Milena Ilieva, who is the HR director at Updata One, also known as AData Pro. Okay. We also have Kristina Domozetova, who is the HR team lead at PPD Bulgaria, which are part of Thermo Fisher Scientific. And we honestly invited these businesses because some of them are new, and some of them have been here for a while. They have been doing diversity and inclusion at their workplaces, and we haven't heard from them yet. So that's why we decided that it's actually high time for them to go public with their amazing initiatives already. And yeah, I would actually like to start with, how do you build a business that's inclusive, and how do you actually start this from the very beginning when you open up shop, as a slang? Like, I know this is what happened for Work Nomads because I spent some time there. So please, Galina, I invite you to share more how you built Work Nomads and the values that you're preaching, how they contributed to your business development in the past year.
Thank you, Sophie. It's very comforting to know you, to know you from our previous work together. And I'm really happy to be here and to share my experience with a very specific, I have thought in my mind about very specific examples that personally touch my heart, and I hope to be memorable for the others as well. So I've been part all through my life of a huge multinational. So 20 years I spent in a huge multinational, pharmaceutical, and I built my career there. So I'm leading just like a second life in the startup in terms of how actually values are built up from scratch now, and the values that were already there for 120 years of the pharma company I was part of. So our first conversations with our founder, and you know her very well, was around what kind of company we would like to build. And I would like to use this metaphor of the sprint and the marathon. Of course, I truly believe, and I agree with all the rest, that a diversity and inclusion is a marathon. But when you start up a business, you need to sprint to reach to the marathon. Because we needed to introduce our values from ourselves, because we were the first employees. And in a startup, as you may know, and my colleague knows for sure, one person, that's why I'm a queen bee, because I don't know what I am, actually. One person is doing so many things. And we don't have all these huge capacities of employee groups and a budget, etc., to build a community to help us build our diversity inclusion culture. So we decided to introduce a kind of let's say, starting point from the people who would get into the company. I understand that this is a privilege that not every company has. So we were asking around our employees about their inclusion and diversity values before they launched the company. But I would like to share. I would like to share about an occasion that I forgot to ask. I forgot to mention this topic during an interview, and somebody actually entered my team, and he was a Gen Z. So actually, again, it was my prejudice that we don't need to talk about it, which is again a very good learning point. So he made a homophobic comment during one of our team meetings, and I made a lecture to him around how we really want to build this company with ultimate diversity of not only gender and race, but also we meet people in different phases in their life, but I'll talk about this later, so I just open a bracket about this type of diversity. Yeah. And I made a lecture, we had a conversation, and he did not appear the next day.
Interesting.
He did not appear at work. So it was a crash of our values, and it is not, I did not put pressure on him. I tried to ask questions, and as the panelists here brilliantly talked about, just invite him to think about the way he feels, the way we feel, etc., etc. So. And nevertheless, when you build a new company, it's very important that it starts first from the founders, and then each and every that launches the company to have a light pressure. I would say I don't believe in forced culture. To have a soft pressure around: are you breathing these values or not? Because if you're not, we just can't actually work together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I agree. Thank you, Gala. Bobby, employee is actually a product that recently also got huge amount of funding, hopefully more to come, and you're scaling pretty fast, but also this product was actually built on inclusivity in general. Can you share more about how you started employee and how you actually decided to build it in such a way that it's so inclusive?
So thank you for the question and thank you for the invitation. Let's start from the beginning. And for the people who don't know, Employee is an innovative platform that is connecting employees, candidates, and employers for hiring purposes. And when we started in the beginning, I was having a software company back then, hiring software developers, and we had the same problem like every big company. It's very hard to find cool people, very hard to find experienced people, and developers at all. So when the other co-founders, when we met and discussed why we don't start a startup aimed into this to change the way that in the beginning we wanted to make it more efficient, but then we realized that the whole industry needs to be changed just to be wrapped up and turned around. So we decided that instead of a job posting website like all the rest, we'll create a matching app with algorithms that basically give you the right job for you. But then on the other side, on the employer side, I've saw how many times even in my teams, people started looking into, so when we get a CV, we're not only looking at the experience, we're looking at, oh, he lives in, I don't know, in the province. Oh, she's a good-looking girl, and things like this. It's a natural thing. And we started thinking with our co-founders, let's do a product that can isolate this in the beginning. Because in hiring process, the discrimination is on every step. And sometimes it's coming natural from, it's not, it shouldn't be like this, but people start thinking because they are used to this. This is our culture in Bulgaria, in most of the big companies. And in here, our panel and the other panel, we're all from the white-collar jobs. But think about the blue collar, think about all the other side of the business, which the discrimination there is huge. But let's get back on the app. We started thinking about what we should do so people, when you need to find people, you look only on the skills and the experience. You can't even see the rest. And how we build the platform, basically, what the employer sees and the recruiters see, they don't see the name because there is a huge discrimination based just on the name prejudice. And I've seen this, and just as an example, it's not we're gathered because of the LGBT community, but then there's so many other ways of discrimination. For example, I've seen if the person is named Hassan, just as an example, then I'm sure that there are half of the companies in the country that won't hire him, won't even invite him to an interview, and he can be way more experienced than anyone else. So basically, the name is the first factor of discrimination. Then is the gender, because someone wants to get just to hire girls or any kind of we don't even need to touch this topic here. Then there's the location where you're coming from. Then it's the age. Also, the youngest and the oldest, they're way more discriminated than, so basically there's so many levels, so we try to isolate everything. So in employee, the first thing you see as an employer before you approve the candidate is basically only the skills and the experience and all the data that is unidentifiable. And after you approve the candidate, then of course you need to reveal this. But the platform is built so all this inclusion is into the system. It's the only one, and we're still researching. We couldn't find anything else in the world, so it's the first one. I think this is part of the success that we're growing so quickly, and it's easy to get companies which have the same values in their core.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bobby. And by the way, just to share with our audience and also the ones that are watching online, there is a video in the break and probably is going to run throughout the networking session. You can scan the QR code and it's the employee survey for diversity and inclusion at the workplace, both for employees and employers. So it would be nice if you take some time to fill it out. It's completely anonymous. And also, we would, on behalf of GLAS Foundation and Work It Out, we would appreciate the results of this survey. That's why I'm promoting it here today. Thank you, Bobby. Milena, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you
I know that Data One have been doing business for a long time now, and you've been there for quite some time. Tell me about diversity and inclusion there and how you built those values and how you actually developed different practices that are engaging on that topic.
Okay. Data One is actually a community of 4 companies, and we are all Bulgarian companies, but we have international teams, all of these 4 companies. So actually, diversity inclusion has always been part of our business model because we make sense of information. Our services and our products are focused on that we help our clients to find the meaning, to find the knowledge within the information they have. So most of the people are people with linguistic and philological background, and we work with 80+ languages. So in order to be able to scale 80+ languages, we literally hire those people wherever they speak those languages. And when I hear the discussion from the first panel and the discussion that we have now, thanks God, probably the best thing that happened to us is that post-pandemic trend to work remotely or in a hybrid mode, because all those things, pretty girl or good-looking boy, I think some of these things working remotely will be less and less problems. But the other thing is, when you have business that is based on the skill set of your people, actually your people are really your strongest asset. And when you have those people around the world, you have to be diverse because you have to include all those people. And we have, of course, different initiatives. What is actually curious about us, we don't have policy for diversity inclusion. There is no written text, nor a procedure, nor a single line. But we have that as a values and as a culture, and even I totally agree with Brice, it's part of the recruitment, of the hiring process. How you approach people and how you check those values, and actually when you have a good match, then this is an employee for our company. That's the most important thing. It doesn't matter really where this person lives or what are his religious beliefs. In fact, we have those cases. We have people with certain religious beliefs that do not allow them to work, for example, for gambling topics or work on alcoholic brands. And we have that switch. We have, of course, you are available for us. We change the project. And you go to another project that is not in dissonance with your beliefs. And we're doing that naturally. I mean, we really do that naturally. Of course, I get some bright ideas from the first panel and some things we can do more. And for me, diversity inclusion is not a sprint. It's not a marathon. It's a journey. And actually, on your journey, you have to, you have to like that journey. Yeah. Sometimes you have to stop and think. Sometimes you have to find the right transport to the next stop. Sometimes you have sightseeing. Sometimes you manage to do things that really makes you feel proud. And sometimes you have failures, but that are good lessons that you learn and keep going. And I think patience and actually love towards people are the most important values to be really good in diversity inclusion.
Yeah, I actually really love that reference with the journey. It really sounds like it. I think
this is the winner.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is the winner. True. Chrissy,
Thank you again for accepting our invitation. This is the first time that we have a pharmaceutical company here engaged so publicly with us. So please tell me what actually you're doing in Bulgaria on the topic of diversity and inclusion, and also how is your employer and the company that you're representing like doing it on a global scale, and
first thank you for inviting me, and to make some clearance here why the name is so long currently. So PPD Bulgaria was at that point not so much a pharmaceutical, but actually a clinical company. So it's our specialists that partake in different stages of the clinical trials. Another heavy topic from the last years, and since almost 2 years ago now, Thermo Fisher Scientific as a global group acquired us. So now we're part of a company that's above 100,000 employees across the globe. When I've started actually, and I've resonated so much with Bobby's words, I started as a recruiter in PPD 2 years ago. And I started just post-pandemic. It was just diminishing its influence over our lives. So I would say locally there weren't many initiatives. We were just opening our eyes, literally. And at some point in the first months of my career journey, exactly, I started receiving some global emails on the topic of diversity and inclusion. And being myself, I instantly got very engaged on the topic. I asked, well, how can I participate? And basically they started explaining in the first month of each employee that on a global scale, what we're doing is each employee can participate in the so-called BRGs, business resource groups. So this is one of the ways that a company of such a scale, because in Bulgaria we're around 2,000 people now, but as I mentioned, globally it's much more. So the big question is how to make people across the globe so involved into this or any other topic. And those business resource groups having different chapters, so-called, which are regionally based, are one of the ways that I hooked up literally with other people from the company. And particularly for me, because there are different groups. There's the African American community, people of color, the Asian communities. Really, I think there are 10 BRGs in total, working parents. So I think I'm at least on 2 of those actively. But for myself, the Pride Plus EMEA group at some point reached out for new members, and I'm most active in that one. So we've been discussing that quite a lot with people across Europe. And to my knowledge, we didn't have much local initiatives, as I said, mostly because everything was closed for 2 years straight. So with us, it wasn't much of a topic. And to be quite frank, the industry is somewhat conservative, at least in Bulgaria, in the Eastern Europe, South Europe region. This is still not a hot topic because you're working mostly with pharmacists, doctors, and this is a whole other industry. It's not blue collar, but it's the literal white collar, which also has a lot of, we all know who's been here for quite a while and knows the health system enough to know that this can be a conservative field, and announcing yourself as part of the LGBTQ plus community can lead to certain implications if you have to conduct a certain trial with a certain doctor. So I started proactively engaging as a recruiter, how are we targeting on local level, so they instantly connected me with people across Europe, across the globe. And one of the things is that with us as well, during interview from the first stage, we also have not so advanced, I admit, I've done that with candidates myself. I told them you're not obliged to share your age. Okay, gender at that point, it's still a prejudice and people on the interviews want to know it, but I also started working with managers, and recruiters have a global supporting initiative to remove that bias. So even when we're posting jobs online, we have to now run them through a specific program, which is not yours, but I'll connect so that the job post actually looks unbiased, because there's this unconscious bias language that you have, and as a recruiter, there are some tests from Harvard University that we were not obliged to take, but it was very recommended to check your own bias.
Absolutely.
So you know this and you're very aware. So one of the things that I would say we constantly do first, as a first step, is awareness, because bias really comes very much, and it can be not only, it's very interesting, it's not only gender, sexuality, religion. Sometimes it's, oh yeah, I know that guy from university and he knows the guy who's on the interview, maybe I can ask. So this is actually unconscious bias that also needs to be removed sometime. And in terms of that direction, we started with that. And last year I asked if we can join officially the Pride with merch and t-shirts, and we were very supported in that direction.
Amazing.
So we started the journey.
Great. Actually, yeah, we are all biased. And that's one of the topics, the main topic that we are tackling during the trainings that we do together with Gala, actually. Apart from being the Queen Bee at Work Nomads, she's one of the facilitators at Work It Out, and we are doing exactly these trainings where we try to tackle biases and put people in funny situations, I would say, where they have to be tackled or tackle people themselves, and it's really interesting. But as you mentioned, awareness is the first step. If you are aware, then you're halfway there, which is, I think it's true for many things, right? So in terms of question, any one of you can pick it up. What do you think are some common barriers for companies that are trying to accelerate inclusion at the workplace?
I think the understanding of the topic and understanding why you're doing this, why you need diversity inclusion as part of your corporate talk. Yeah, I totally agree with the speakers at the first panel that this is something that is old-fashioned already or fading away as a trend, but still, when you have those words in your corporate and employer branding, please, it works well for you. That really helps our understanding to go beyond. I know we all have to find budgets and things like that, but we should go beyond that and think of people and how to make people more comfortable at their workplace first. And second, I think that your role, NGO's role, is actually not to be only our partners, but to be to guide us in this. If someone wants to contribute to that donation and then to fade away, what I would do is actually advise this company and said, instead of that donation, do internal workshops, speaks about diversity and inclusion, and maybe come back next time. Yeah. And maybe you will like it next time, next year, and then you support it on the year after, and things like that. So we need you as partners, but more to help us to make that awareness that Christina mentioned.
Absolutely.
So one of the barriers I also see, I hugely agree with what Milena says, awareness, and the topic is underestimated. I would add on this that I think also awareness around how difficult it is actually to not be your natural self or authentic self, as is the terminology now. I would like to give an example. It's not from the company, but also the personal example, the leadership example, which is also underestimated, I would say, and I find this as a barrier and something that all leaders should think of, giving more example about how they felt when they were discriminated or how they felt where they were down, or just personal examples from their lives. Again, an example comes to me with the training with the prosecutors, where a person from saying, if my child needs to go to a kindergarten with a child that is raised from a one-sex family, I would want my child to leave the kindergarten, from this way of thinking to coming and crying in my shoulders when she understood my personal story. And just as a bracket, we are raising our children in a same-sex family. So, so imagine that this person was in my company, and actually your personal story, the personal story of people that work there, moves mountains. Literally, I saw it with my own eyes, because at the end of the day, we are all human beings, and she also felt discriminated. She also felt discriminated in her destiny of a heterosexual woman, with her 4 divorces, or I don't know what was I don't remember exactly the case, but every one of us, actually, this is the culture that we would like to build without standard operative procedures. I'm not saying that they are not needed in the big multinationals, but still we would like to avoid that as much as we can. Although we are 100 employees already, and it's starting to be difficult without procedures on everything. But we would really like everyone to breathe these values, and if there's somebody who is, we call it, lost a bit, you just give your personal story and talk to them. So this is very, very powerful.
Absolutely.
If I can add up something on the awareness topic, and it's also it's also about the integrity, because it's really. It's easy to get into one of there are hundreds of discrimination types, and we need to be aware in general about what discrimination is, what are all the types, and not words towards removing one of it, but then do the other. Like, if you decide that in your company there is a, multi-color strategy, that you hire different kind of color people from color, but then on the same time you discriminate on other topic. So you need to be you need to fight for this integrity also from all the leadership and management part, because you see now there is a new trend which is very highly coming. It's this zodiacal sign discrimination. I mean, this is in hiring, and it's getting huge. It sounds funny, but there are companies that don't hire specific kind of, I don't know, astrological signs for different positions. And this is discrimination. And if you tolerate this, but then on the other side you say, we have an inclusion policy on the other topic, or age, you don't hire old people after 50 with a lot of skills because they're, from specific age, but on the same time you have a policy of other types. So we need to include everything and talk on the abstract level. And this is, I think the first step is from the leadership examples.
Yeah.
Because you can say anything in front of the team, but people look at your behavior in your decisions, and your children look at your decisions and behavior. So basically the first step is if the management of a company, they don't do what they say they believe in, this is what this is saying to the rest. And also, yeah, think about and explain what discrimination is. It's in its core, not about all the, just choose a specific type and then we'll fix this, but then we tolerate others. I think this is quite important.
Yeah, I very much agree here on the integrity part. And this is unfortunately the sad part, where sometimes when the company drops over a certain level of people inside, sometimes the policies and procedures are needed. I haven't checked if we have them, to be honest. I believe we do in terms of a bit more procedures and not so much. We have the general values, so this is, as I said, checked during even the interview process. What's your opinion about that? As Gala said, one example where they didn't check that and then had an unpleasant surprise. But sometimes policies protect exactly that integrity, that if you notice from any part of the organization, and speaking as an HR, obviously, we're usually the people who the complaints end up with secretly. Yeah. And if something like that happens, you have to know what is your backup against if there is an employee, especially if there is a manager who's making any case of discrimination against anyone from the company based on criteria included. I'm still amazed by the zodiac sign, but including this should help you. Actually, those policies would be your backup, even though I wouldn't advocate for them, but in terms of what can be implemented at some point if we scale up as a business, I believe that would help to just have the leverage, I would say, at a later point.
Yeah, maybe just to create the flow for my next question. Generally, diversity and inclusion at the workplace is something that usually mostly HR departments are taking care of, right? And it's not just about the people. I mean, it's very, very important for the people that work at the company, but most companies just put this on the values, put this in their mission, vision, inclusive world, inclusive software, inclusive everything, but then again, they do nothing in terms of actual inclusivity at the workplace. I would like to ask, what do you think, how actually inclusivity contributes to business growth? And business growth meaning business development rather than people management, and of course, it's part of the business development because the more clients you have, the more people you have to hire, the more people you have to hire, the more you want to open the doors and adopt all the practices out there. Diversity, inclusion, yeah, let's do it. And I'm speaking this not only as part of GLAS, I've been Empower Brand Manager for over 5 years. I've seen this with most of the companies that I've worked at, where they hire me, they expect me to do magic in terms of diversity and inclusion, in terms of doing CSR stuff, corporate social responsibility, doing internal events, yeah, let's do this, let's do that, and then you see the management, they do not care. Then you see that these values are just something written on a page on a website and not actually values that have been preached by the management, as Bobby mentioned. So, back to my question. I would rather want to know how these values actually contribute to the business growth in terms of B2B and B2C businesses, regardless of the target, but yeah, how these contribute to that growth.
So,
doesn't matter.
I can. First, I actually did not clarify what Work Nomads is about, and I like this question because I wait for the right answer to say, the right question, so that I introduce it. So it's a great question, and I would like to give an example with a client. But beforehand, Work Nomads is a global employer. We employ digital nomads from all over the world, but we invite them to come in Bulgaria. So this is the different part, that we don't work with them remotely. And in this way, actually, we give access to all these people all around the world that don't have access to the global market, started with Union or United, like European Union, United States, etc. So just today, we employed somebody from Pakistan, from Iran, and from Syria. So you can't imagine how difficult it is to facilitate the immigration process of somebody coming from those countries into the European Union. So our whole business is built on diversity and giving these chances to people all over the world, talents from all over the world, to work from whatever they want, for whomever they want. And there is something, it's a thin ice that I will step onto now, but there is a discrimination from the part of our clients in terms of, let's say, background, nationality background. I'm very respectful that this discrimination is coming from some kind of bad experience. I understand that, and I'm respectful to that. It's not because they're bad people. And we had a very hard conversation with our funder because we encountered this issue with one of our first clients, our biggest clients, and we are a startup. We cannot afford, actually, not comply with the desires of our clients. But I sat with her, we sat together, and I said, you know what? Do you think it's just a very crazy idea that we just pretend we have not heard them? And nevertheless, actually, if we really think that the talent that we have employed, can really service their business in whatever we are servicing in the ITC and engineering sphere we are working, we just, nevertheless put this person forward. And if they discriminate the person, this is their issue. Of course, having said that, I underline that we couldn't afford saying no to clients. As you are a startup business, you just can't afford it. We couldn't say no to certain industries that we would maybe like to, like tobacco, alcohol, gambling, etc., etc. Again, no, I don't want to sound discriminative towards those industries, but everyone has the right, as you mentioned, an employee that doesn't want to, because of religious or other prejudice, to work for those industries. So for us, it was a big step. That's why I'm underlining this, that we could not afford that. And it was a huge risk that we took, and we did it. And not only we don't lose the client, but actually this was appreciated. They did actually let one of their projects to be led by a person coming from a nationality that they didn't want to. And we won their, I would say, not only trust, but respect even more, because we just proved them wrong in a good way, in a kind way. And sometimes I just, when I go back in time, I just feel that we were very close to not do the right thing. We were very close. And I'm so happy that we didn't. So in terms of our growth, now we employ people from 16 nationalities coming from very exotic places. And our clients are very happy about them, because when they integrate into their teams, actually they bring a lot of diversity, and they just they challenge the status quo. They challenge our culture even. They challenge everything in a good way. And it's a huge upside, and they realize it. So this is, for me, it's number one instrument for growth.
Yeah. And actually, that's exceptional growth for the past 1 year, basically. Yes. Yeah. Good job.
Thank you.
Getting back on the question, I think the answer is not that hard. It's quite simple. And if you're not inclusive enough, you're in HR, you're limiting your access to talent, and you're limiting your access to experts, and basically your choice is lower. When you have better talents and you hire stronger people and more expert, you have access in the management to better ideas, which turn into decisions and turn into profit at the end. Where all this it consists of communities. So in marketing, basically, being inclusive means you have access to more communities. In B2C, this is crucial. In B2B, for sure, because businesses, they also in communities. In regional communities, in communities by topics or any kind of verticals. So basically, being inclusive means you have more access, which you have more opportunities to grow and to be successful. Yeah. So that's the answer. I don't know anything else that can limit you more than being just discriminative to any kind of community.
Absolutely. Selective, not an appropriate way. Yeah, completely agree. I mean, different people from different cultures, they have different perspective, different approaches, and that's actually push innovation quite naturally within the company. Yeah. And you have a lot of ideas that becomes products or services, so your company is happy and profitable, your clients are happy and profitable, and completely agree that when you are not authentic, when you're just saying that you're inclusive or do not discriminate, but at the same time you don't have your role models in the leadership or as an internal culture, in your professional community, quite often these are the first people that actually find a way to tell you that you're not on the road, on the right road, and you're not authentic, and somehow they lose trust in you, and trust is a very important thing when you're doing business.
Absolutely.
Very important thing.
Yeah, but you also risk to be the odd one in terms of communities, business communities. You risk being discriminated just because you're inclusive, which is kind of mind-blowing, but it still happens to some extent.
I would add up here, again, the recruiter perspective. The other day we spoke with our HR manager, who actually, I told her about the invitation, and she was a bit like, I'm amazed you have time for this. It was like, it's a bit of a passion also. But we were discussing this, how do people afford to cancel someone based on any kind of prejudice or discrimination when there's so few talent in the world right now, and we're looking for those unicorn people. So if you allow any kind of discrimination in your company at the point, I can vouch for that from HR perspective. You're going to have a loss from revenue perspective because you're not going to bring forward the right talent. That's one thing. Another thing, because you already mentioned quite a lot about the different points of view, but there's one point that I love also from a personal perspective, and what I liked when I entered the company is exactly what I mentioned around those business resource groups. Participating in any kind of activities and initiatives against any bias or discrimination gives you that feeling of belonging that was discussed in the first panel. Actually gives you the opportunity in such huge companies, because otherwise I'm kind of locked with 10 people, either remotely or in an office. Okay, we can be even 100, but still it's quite a limited audience. We know each other by the end of the 6th month. And otherwise you get the opportunity to meet new people and discuss this and involve each other and help the company be built from within. And we're basically left not by ourselves, because there is a huge project behind us, but there's so much liberty in terms of what the employees are doing. And I really am very grateful for that, and I feel supported in that perspective, that you're just left to do it by ourselves. When we decided to organize Thermo Fisher's involvement for the first time in Sofia Pride, and I wrote, and for this year we wanted to scale up a bit, but hopefully next year. I just wrote, can we do it? And everyone was, yeah, do you need support? And we were, and this was not only HR. This came from people from Bulgaria that are in the BRG, in the Business Resource Group. And as usually, I believe that change also should come from the people, that you don't wait for the company to change the policy, but you have to also fight for yourself. I can say from a bit more business perspective, it helps that the company operates with integrity on all levels, because even before the merge, PPD started working in the direction of diversifying clinical trials. This is especially quite a topic outside of Europe, USA particular, but clinical trials are quite often limited to people who can go to the trial, which naturally excludes secluded communities. Mothers quite often, or single parents, doesn't matter, mothers, fathers. People of color are often excluded, and this actually is quite a bad thing for the ending product that we receive as a medicine, because it has been tested on a very limited group. And right now I believe they are talking quite a lot about volunteers from the trans community, so it can be also widened how certain tested drugs are affecting people during transition. Because this is a hugely important topic, and for me it was very relieving to see that R&D and clinical and pharma are moving in that direction as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. To be honest, I've only read about clinical trials mostly being done and performed on men. So I don't think that even for most medicine, they have enough data, for example, for the other half of the population, and not to mention those that are...
Not to prioritize on that, but it's good news, I think, that decentralizing that also will bring the tested medicine to the person, to the patient, because otherwise you sometimes have to travel miles and miles, and this is also a form of discrimination, because you can't reach your medicine, that's the thing. So thankfully we're going in the direction where clients won't be able to say no, I hope.
Yeah, generally what I was thinking about, and I've been thinking about that for years, is when you're building belonging, that means that you're embracing authenticity, right? So that means that you hire a person with all their ups and downs, mood swings, everything, right? So you have to be, if you want to build that belonging, you have to be mindful of all those phases of people's lives, right? And you have to be mindful of the fact that everything happens to anybody, right? So in terms of building authenticity at the workplace, what do you think about that? And what would be your advice to aspiring founders and businesses, where to start and how to do this, how to build such teams that their businesses suit for success?
So this is the topic that I'm most passionate about, and this is what I mentioned at the very beginning, that I want to come back. So without having discussed with you, thank you for coming back to this. As a psychologist, this is a personal passion of mine, because I also try to introduce a lot of deep psychology into our meetings with the team, when the whole day we're just awakening ourselves, going deeper into our self-awareness, about our childhood trauma, about who we are, and this really helps. It was a taboo, of course, in the corporate world, but now our funder is letting me do crazy things, which is great. So actually, this is what I wanted to touch upon. Sexual orientation, race, coming from the bigger city or smaller city in this sense, these are very obvious red flags that you need to tackle in order for people not to feel in any way discriminated or labeled. But there are so many things that actually we don't talk about. Like, for example, that somebody is in a very, very difficult situation in their lives, as exactly when we started the business. And you know more about it, I was just totally blown out of the universe. And she knew about it, our funder, and still she bet on me. She said, but she'll be okay. I'm sure she'll make it. She believed in me. We have people who are divorcing, and they're in a very difficult stage of their lives. We had a great woman who, on the interview, she disclaimed, so imagine how great we were. So she disclaimed that she's pregnant on the interview. How many people can go to an interview with this claim? And actually, of course, no need to say that we employed her. And we said, this is the greatest news, actually, so congratulations, and you're hired. We don't need to have the interview, you're hired. So actually, there are so many, or women struggling to have children, or women that doesn't want to have children, and from the training we know that they are very, there is a huge discrimination around this as well. And I think that the employer of the future would be very mindful about the hidden underwater stones that are not obvious, because we, deep inside, actually, we have a lot of secrets that we don't want to go forward with. If you lived in a family where there was an alcohol abuse, if you lived in a family when there was, you were, let's say, abused physically as a child or mentally, so you might look as a very great, HR director or whatever, but deep inside, actually, there are so many things that you're hiding, and they're not that obvious, they're not on your skin, and of course you are privileged not to be discriminated right away, but in the longer term, when you come to know each other, you might get discriminated because of your past, because of what you have lived through in your past, or because of the difficult situation that you are now. And for me, it's an absolute must that we talk about this in the workplace. We talk about this also bias and discrimination and thin ice topics. We face them, and again, with the personal example of the leadership team, we just make everybody understand that it's okay. It's okay to talk about this. It's okay to be in this difficult situation, that we are there to just leave them alone if they need to be left alone for a while, just for example. and then come back, rejoin us when you're ready.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe I would like to open it, because we have like 5 minutes, to open it to our audience. If you have any questions, please feel free to jump in. And I would, yeah, you go ahead. You need it for the stream.
For the live, yeah.
Thank you.
So, hello everyone, my name is Kaloyan and I'm from Plovdiv. We're kind of on the brink of creating a foundation like GLAS in Plovdiv for the first time, so I hope you hear more soon. It's the first time for me in such an event, and I'm kind of missing something from the discussion, which comes from my city. If you know, like Plovdiv is the industrial heart of Bulgaria, and I don't see production managers here. I kind of have it in my head. I've been thinking it for like 20 minutes now. Why is this like this? The reasons. And it's like a paradox, because if I look at Plovdiv, we have Lipher, we have Schneider, we have Sensata, we have Osram, we have a whole queue of international productions that are happening in my home. But I don't think these people are comfortable pushing on the agenda of such diversity, which is connected to LGBTQ and so on, because they are so dependent on the blue collars that need to run their business. And if something happens, I work with Schneider, kind of contractor for university programs, and I just can envision myself if Schneider makes a big statement connected to LGBTQ, for instance. They have 900 people working there, and I can imagine the types of people working there will not be so happy, and this discussion needs to be very gradual and slow. And I just want to bring it here as a topic because I cannot wrap my head around it, because production companies, because of the amount of how many people are in contact with them, working for them, or buying their products, they have a huge potential to change a whole city, in the mindset of a whole city, by changing their workforce. And maybe we can start talking with them and inviting them to events like this, because it's great that we have offices with digitally very educated people that have been traveled. Yes, we are great. I mean, I know a lot of people like this, and I'm so happy to be here. But next week, I'm going to be in the plant in Schneider and Plovdiv, and I see 900 people who have a potential to change their society. What are we doing about them?
Very good question. Thank you, Kao. Actually, I think that we know each other for a while, but kudos for doing this foundation thing in Plovdiv. I'm also from Plovdiv, so it's thank you. Anyone who would like to take the question?
I think here it's something is happening in the last years, which is actually quite changing, and it's very it's changing for good. Is that even all those companies, which most of them they're high workers, they have a so large scarcity of talent and of people that they cannot afford to discriminate anymore. So what's happening not only in Plovdiv is that if before a couple of years they could say, we don't want this guy, he's from, I don't know, East country somewhere, nowadays they cannot afford to do this because they don't have enough people. So normally something which is bad for the economy is good for the diversity. So all these companies are now changing the landscape because they just hire anyone and they cannot afford it. And this is a good thing. So this is what's happening now. In this situation where you don't have enough people, that's even if you are not that much inclusive, you cannot do it anymore. So it's changing like from the outside.
But if I understood, actually, Koyan, you're asking a bit more in the direction of why is it companies in production, they're not here. Literally, they're missing. I think we're not addressing the pink elephant in the room, which is unfortunately the state, the country that we live in, which still has quite a lot of restrictions, especially when we're talking here LGBTQ. We discussed different types of discrimination, but this is very obvious in Bulgaria and very, very unfortunate. and quite frankly, very annoying at that point in 2023. Just let's face it. So I think still, while your question is quite painful, actually, it's the fact that you are here and you're doing that in Plovdiv, and I think you answered yourself, saying that you're going to contact them. Of course, they're most probably not going to join Sofia Pride or make Plovdiv Pride this year, next year, but the direction is already set. And this is why I believe we are here, and especially bigger companies from the first panel, and if I convince that we're moved to that one next year, we should be the trendsetters. The companies at some point should start making demands, the business should make demands to the country. This is my personal answer. I've always believed in it very much, that at some point the business should start leading Bulgaria to a better place in that direction, because otherwise we're allowing the state to manipulate us into the place where we are right now, and I don't think anyone is happy with the current affairs. So I think it's more into the direction of setting that example, and then you take it, and then it's going to be 2-3 people from the company that like the direction, and that moves us forward already.
Thank you very much. Just to address what Boris said first, yes, this is happening, but it's internal, so it's only they're getting courses about what is discrimination, what the do, but they're not stating it outside. And connected with the other topic that was mentioned, yes, I agree that this is part of the country we live in, because I am sure, and I know, not I'm sure, but Schneider, Liebherr, and all the good, great companies which are founded outside, they have practices that can be relevant to this discussion, but they're not being transferred and translated well in Bulgaria.
But Kalian, change your perspective. It's actually an opportunity for you.
Yes,
it's not just challenge. It's an opportunity. This is how we change the world we live in. And as I said, take it as a journey. Really, I know it's hard, and some failures are on your way, but still, I'm sure there will be some good moments and points. And actually, we do have an office in Plovdiv, and I know the difference between the labor market in Sofia and in Plovdiv, but still, the other option is actually to have support from the capital. That's what we are doing in the Association of Business Excellence, actually all companies that are kind of KPO, ITO, BPO business. We actually go, for the last 3 years, we are very much outside Sofia. We are in Plovdiv and in Burgas and in Varna and in Ruse and in Blagoevgrad, Stara Zagora, Veliko Trnovo, all these cities. Because these changes should be transferred, we should have this good example there, not only in terms of inclusion and discrimination, in terms of education, in terms of hiring practices, how to be authentic, ethic when you're doing business. Because at the end of the day, I really believe in that. It's trust. The way your people trust you, the way the company trusts you as a professional, and the way your clients trust you. And we are all connected. It's 21st century. If you do something that is not right or not ethical, it will be around the world for a couple of seconds. So we should be aware of that and try to be as authentic as possible. I know we all have biases and we all have internal struggles, but besides that, just to feel comfortable to be ourselves. That's important for us, and when we have it, like when we have it ourselves, then we can give this to our children, to our colleagues. Yeah. It's not vice versa. I mean, it's really, really tough job if you try to do it in another way around.
And unfortunately, we don't have time, but we have a networking cocktail coming up. So you have the space and the environment, thanks to Financial Times, to actually continue the talk between yourselves. And just to wrap it up, yeah, actually businesses are a big player in setting the trends. It's also, they are also the people working there and the people owning these businesses are actually those that can contribute to huge change. And all of us can actually help those things happen. As Milena mentioned, Kauyan, this is a great opportunity for you to tackle this. And first it's going to be 1-2 people, but then in 5 years, there are going to be 12,000 people. Hopefully this year we're going to bring 15,000 people to Pride, and more to come. And in the beginning, there were what? Only 100. And 3 other contra-protests, as far as I remember. So now we're bigger, and you know that's what's scaring the people that are very close-minded in our country. But also you guys, everybody that's been here, I hope that all these panels and all these sessions actually helped you and gave you some ideas about how you can adopt these best practices in your businesses, how you can advise the people in your companies to do this. And thank you so much. Please enjoy the cocktail. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
It makes me feel very anxious and nervous.
Just a total invalidation of my identity. I tried not to focus on that because it happens so often.
I used to have moments of anxiety and moments of panic.
It puts me in a place where I feel like I'm in danger. It just sucks every single time.
They look at it and they look at you, and they look at it and they look at you.
Oh, is this actually you?
Are you serious? Oh my God.
Stop. That's so cool.
That's incredible. That's who I am. Handing over my card makes me feel very anxious and nervous.
Just a total invalidation of my identity. I tried not to focus on that because it happens so often.
I used to have moments of anxiety and moments of panic.
It puts me in a place where I feel like I'm in danger. It just sucks every single time.
They look at it and they look at you, and they look at it and they look at you.
Oh, is this actually you?
Are you serious? Oh my God.
Stop. That's so cool.
That's incredible. That's who I am. Card makes me feel